pretty much, I would say maybe the best matchups, other than obviously I know Tony would have loved to see the Bills against the Chiefs for that rematch, but still, Bengals Chiefs is about as good as it gets as well. So we're going to talk about that as well, of course, and then we're going to talk about a couple big things around the NFL, some coaching news, stuff like that. But to start off, the thing that probably the biggest news of the weekend, even if it's not really true news, because I think we all knew this was eventually going to come down the pipe. We finally got a true live update of Damar Hamlin's condition in terms of him being the one to come out, talk about it, get his perspective on it. And honestly, as much as I'm happy to see him be able to do something like this, I'm also just glad that for the most part, a lot of the idiots who are talking about whether he was actually alive or not and all this other crazy stuff, that's hopefully put to bed for the most part. I was tired of seeing that on Twitter constantly. So that's honestly probably the biggest thing for me personally, but honestly just awesome to see him be able to give a statement like that, to be able to make a video like that so soon after having that situation, obviously, with the Bengals and Bills game a few weeks back. What do you guys think about it? I'm going to go to Tony first, obviously. I want to see what he kind of thinks about that.
Yeah, obviously, it's just really incredible to see him, hear from him, be just knowing that he's on his road to full recovery. It's not perfect, still got a long way to go, going to be hard, but the fact that he is as okay as he is awesome. And yeah, like you said, anybody who is spewing conspiracies, man, you're just a fucking idiot. Like,
yeah, it's insane. It's insane.
This is where free thinking gets you. Maybe you don't have to be so edgy in your thought process, because it leads you down roads like this. He's clearly alive and well, on the road to recovery, and it's awesome. And I just love to see it, because he's an amazing person, and knowing that he'll be able to still have his impact on the world, it's just great.
Yeah, and again, that whole situation with the conspiracies, again, not everything is shrouded in some sort of dark, deep mystery, guys. We don't want to get too into that stuff just because it never goes well. But in general, just kind of calm down when it comes to stuff like this. Like, the NFL is not trying to cover it up. They're not trying. That was never the case. A kid just almost died on the field, and
no, I mean
he
practically did die.
Yeah, he pretty much did. Yeah,
on the field.
Yeah, luckily he was on the field, able to be resuscitated. But that's what saved him. This is not a dark, deep mystery situation. This is just honestly, I don't even want to call it a miracle, because it's just the healthcare workers doing exactly what they're trained to do and getting it done in perfect timing to make sure that he has a chance to recover like he has. And we should all just be happy about that. It doesn't have to be this big conspiracy thing. But what do you think about the whole situation, Zach? So.
Oh, no, yeah. No, I agree. I mean, this man was literally resuscitated on the field. I that's not really faking. While, again, I would love to see the Bills here. The one thing I am happy about that will kind of die down a little bit is, while it's been great to hear from him and hear from the team, because that actually feels genuine, the announcers were going a bit far with how they were portraying the whole story. I mean, oh, this is an incredible story. It's not. I mean, it's incredible that he got better. That's incredible. But the story itself is not incredible of what happened. I mean, everybody was dumbfounded and terrified when everybody saw what happened on the field. So yes, the fact that he has made this progress and all of that's incredible, but to basically kind of portray it as a build up to basically looking at comeback player of the year. It's sometimes it's not about the product. It's about more the person and the team and how the other people are reacting to watching somebody practically die on the field. There is the ESPN report that has come out that basically was yeah, no, the NFL had all intentions of continuing this game. There's it was the teams that stopped it, because they're the ones that are playing. So just the idea that it was fake is dumb, because that's not going to be the reaction from all these players, because they like playing football, as dangerous as it is. And it will be nice to have some of this die down a little bit, so we can kind of focus back on what really matters here and getting this statement from him and actually seeing him instead of every 5 minutes trying to get a shot of the snowy box that he I appreciate it, but it just got to be overkill with how much it was cutting and cutting and cutting.
Yeah, it was just kind of you could tell they were trying to kind of milk the situation.
I mean, the circumstances
it felt a little exploited for sure.
Yeah, in the circumstances of the game, I totally get it. It's a rematch of this game that was supposed to happen that was canceled. Like, this is the reason why it was canceled. But I mean, it's already been beaten to death.
Yeah,
sometimes it's time to be like, we acknowledge it. It's fantastic that he's here. Look, and then we move on.
Yeah, just let the man watch his team play, and
exactly,
that's about it. But yeah, I mean, this is just, again, I'm hoping that he's able to have a full recovery and get back to being able to do anything he wants to do. Like, obviously, there's people that keep speculating about, like, will he ever be able to play again? I don't really care about that. Like, obviously, if he can, that's great. He shouldn't have to worry about this specific situation happening again, because it's a 1 in a freaking billion chance of this type of stuff happening.
Yeah,
but I don't really think he's focused on that. I don't think the team's focused on that. I think they're just wanting to make sure that he is as good as he can get, and then whatever the future may hold for him, that's what we'll find out. But yeah, definitely glad to see that for sure.
And honestly, the amount that they were trying to just force feed it down people's throat could probably explain a little bit why some people think that this is all fake and that he's not okay.
Yeah,
just the insistence of them being like, oh, look, he's here, he's fine. And then like an update every 30 minutes, people I can see how people would be like, that's strange. But also I'm not dumb. So
yeah,
I know
right,
that
exactly.
it's not what they're doing, but
and I mean, this is the same league where every draft cycle, they're like, yes, he was a star safety for Florida State University, and these are all the tragedies that occurred during his life that got him here. The NFL loves to push a tragedy, and it definitely gets into exploitation territory. I just want Damar to be able to live his life and recover without the spotlight on him at all times. And hopefully that's the direction we go now.
Yeah, you're right about the whole tragedy pushing thing. I vividly remember watching the 2020 draft whenever everything was during COVID, everything, they had to keep everything kind of at home, and they had Goodell in his weird office thing at his house, whatever it was, and every pick it was this player's mom raised him from 2 without his I'm like, I don't care.
Oh yeah.
I do I hope I'm glad they're doing well, but this isn't part of
that
the
has nothing to do with
process.
Football. I need to you a wide receiver. I need to know what's your hand size. What's your
we don't need to know the background.
What's your cone
it doesn't have to be thrown in our face as the players getting drafted. Just let him get drafted and have a good time. You don't need to remind everybody oh yeah, well his father died when he was 4 years. It's okay, that sucks, but why are you telling me this right now? So yeah, this is nothing new from the NFL, but it's still, I'm just glad that for the most part, I'm hoping that part of it can kind of be over with, and we can just get updates about him as things actually progress, and hopefully things work out well for him. So, but moving on to some coaching news, there's definitely one major piece of news that has come up since we last all met here. So definitely want to start with that. Frank Reich, the new Panthers head coach, gets another opportunity after whatever it was with the Colts last year. Again, that was a whole cluster. We'll just say that. Definitely, I know right off the bat, I like the hire simply because this team desperately needs just a reset and a new leadership element of things, and somebody who has done this before. I think they were one of the few teams where I would have strongly recommended bringing in somebody with some amount of head coaching experience, whether it was good, bad, or otherwise, just to have that ability to say, I've been here, I've done this. And getting an offensive-minded guy for hopefully at some point, either this offseason or next, a new quarterback is also, I think, going to be very important for this team as well. They already have a really good young defense. Want to get your guys' opinion. Let me start with Zach here.
I mean, you're getting an offensive guy for Sam Darnold. Come on, didn't you see the end of? No, I'm just kidding. No, I do like the hire. Because, I mean, throw out last season, and Reich has a fantastic resume. He has been a great coach. I don't necessarily know if he was involved in the QB for hire scheme that Jim Irsay was attempting to pull. And I'm sure that plays a little bit into what was going on with the roster, because they were literally just thinking I'm on the cusp, but they weren't really replacing anything but the quarterback. And that gets a bit tough. So no, I like it. I'm disappointed for Steve Wilkes.
Yes, I should say that too. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Because I do think he deserves a chance somewhere, if not with the Colts, because I mean, the man inherited a dumpster fire and had them in playoff contention up until week 6 or 17. That's That's fantastic. That's great. I don't care how bad the NFC South was. They still had to play and win a good amount of games to get into that conversation. So it's a bit upsetting. But I don't like this. I don't feel like this is something where like Steve Wilkes was cheated, because it's not like somebody came in with no experience and like this is like like they didn't interview anybody. Well, I mean, Frank Reich is an established guy. So like that's what they're looking for right now. It's not like they brought Matt Rule in and gave him a massive contract. Then at that point I'd be like,
why? Who would do that? You know,
yeah,
who would hire Nebraska's head coach? Okay. What do you think, Tony?
Yeah. So I really, really like the hire. And so I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm pretty tuned into the Panthers fan base. I'm excited for what this means for the Panthers, because David Tepper as an owner so far, what we know about him, because he's a relatively new owner, relatively young in his ownership of an NFL franchise. We know that he has some of the deepest pockets in the league. We know that he wants to win now, and we know that he is willing to go all in on whatever he decides is the best move, whether it is the best move or not. We saw it fail with Matt Rule, but now we see he hired a damn good coach, an offensive coach. What comes with that now? Because we know that they're not going to stop being aggressive now that they've made this move. I think this tells us that they are going to do anything possible to trade up to number one, or they're going to do anything possible to get their quarterback in the draft. They want to give Frank Reich somebody to develop. We also know that, that there's been rumors that Vic Fangio is the top target there, and they're going to open up the pocketbooks. They can pay Vic Fangio more than any other team can. They can tell him, hey, yeah, Stephen Ross, he wants to throw you a bag. You want to play with your bud in Miami? We'll double it. We don't care. We'll do it. Yeah, and I think that's going to work.
But it's his bud.
Who cares? Who cares when money talks, man?
Money talks, especially when you're an older coach and you know getting ready. To
and so
be there too long.
I think we're going to see a quick turnaround from this team. I think we're going to see some real cool stuff being built. They already have the defensive roster. They've already got the offensive roster. I do want to acknowledge two things can be true. It sucks and is honestly wrong that Steve Wilkes didn't get this job. The way he stepped in, steered the ship, had the full support of his entire team. That team loved him. That team fought for him. He almost got them into the playoffs after, everything they had been through. That man fully deserved this job. And they made a really good hire after they made the decision not to continue with Steve Wilkes, but it is wrong. And the same thing kind of happened last year with Jacksonville, right? Where like they were all in on Byron Leftwich, but he wanted Aaron Wilson as his GM, which both would have been incredible, smart moves. Of course, the Byron Leftwich thing we've kind of soured on now that he got fired, and we saw them pass that up because they didn't want to fire Trent Baalke and hire Doug Peterson. And they bypassed the really good black head coach candidate to hire a white guy. And it worked out. And it was ultimately a good thing for the franchise, but hiring the other guy could have been a really good thing too. And we see owners every single time this choice comes up, make the decision for the white guy. And so it's that none of these decisions in a vacuum are terrible, are like overly offensive, but the fact that every single time it goes the same direction is what is wrong with the hiring process in the NFL right now. So I do hope that Steve Wilkes gets to be a head coach somewhere, because that man earned it. And I don't want to discount what Frank Reich is going to do in Carolina. I think it's going to be great, but I do think we need to acknowledge that every time a situation like this comes up, it is to the detriment of the black head coach who should be a really quality candidate.
Yeah, and that's something that, I mean, that was a big topic of conversation this past offseason, the Brian Flores situation and his loss against the NFL and everything like that.
Daniel hire.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot to talk about with that, unfortunately. And obviously, as a fan of the team who created the Rooney Rule and has continued to try to advance the situation, I understand that it can be difficult for fans to look at this and go, oh, well, I mean, it worked out. So what does it matter? It's like, it's not about that. It's the process, right? Because it's the same idea as like when Jeff Saturday was hired, right, by Jim Irsay. Everyone was saying like, oh, well, why, give him a chance. Let him do this. It's like, it doesn't matter if he's successful or not. It's the fact that the process in which that allowed him to become a head coach is flawed. That's what the problem here is. It's not about the success or failure of it. It's about the process, because especially in the NFL, it is a relationship business more often than not. And I understand why that is. It's an important aspect of this stuff. But if you have a guy like Steve Wilkes, obviously, I think he definitely deserved to have the opportunity to have at least another year, have an opportunity to coach this team full time as its head coach with the decision making process and having the ability to make decisions full time, right? That would have been a smart move, I think, for them. But Frank Reich is not a bad hire, like you said, Tony. It's the fact that because of the fact he was bypassed for him, there is that conversation about it. And obviously, I don't know if that has anything to do with it from the Panthers' perspective. We're not going to know that. But Wilkes does deserve an opportunity, and it doesn't look like he's probably going to get one this cycle. At least I doubt it. I assume he'll be a defensive coordinator for somebody. Obviously, I don't think that's going to be the case where he doesn't have like a strong position somewhere. But again, he's going to have to once again prove himself in that role, even though he kind of just did that this year. And ultimately, I think it's going to work out for the Panthers. I think the direction of the type of head coach that they hired is a better fit for what they need, specifically because they don't have an established quarterback. I generally don't like defensive hires unless there's either an established quarterback already there or there's a plan to get one that will work with an offensive coordinator that the defensive coach prefers. But at the same time, Wilkes still did deserve this job from in every metric you look at, especially with how things went down the stretch. They had no right going from I think 1-4, 1-5, whatever it was, to I think it was a 7-10 they finished, if I'm not mistaken. So
I'm pretty sure.
I think so.
He goes from the way that team was playing to basically a 500 record in an NFC South that was already terrible compared to everyone else. Like
everybody finished 7-10, but the Bucks,
right? So again, like that division was terrible, obviously, but he still managed to get them to within a game of the playoffs in that division from how they started. Totally deserved an opportunity. Don't know if he'll get one anytime soon, but this is kind of just how it is in the NFL all the time right now.
Yeah, my with the Saturday thing, I always get stuck on with comparing it to other things. It's like literally that was the first time anybody brought an outside candidate in as an interim. That's where you start to get like into the conversations of like, what are you doing?
That's just Jim Irsay being himself. Honestly.
Well, yeah, but also speaks because you had plenty of people on that staff
that deserved it.
That
sure.
I mean, both white and black that deserved a chance. That you're literally pulling somebody out of a studio to coach the team.
Yeah, that one is always going to.
And the fact that he's still actively in the hiring process, is even more crazy.
Listen, I feel bad for everyone in the Colts building that isn't Jim Irsay because, like, granted, like Chris Ballard kind of caused some of this by not being willing to go out and try to swing big a quarterback in the draft or otherwise. Like, he's kind of created this scenario where like Irsay kind of feels like he has to do all this crazy stuff, but still, Irsay is himself. He probably is going to do stuff like this regardless. But yeah, I feel bad for them. But that's definitely the situation with the Panthers right now. Another bit of news, and this is mostly rumors right now, but it seems pretty strong. It appears like at least DeMeco Ryans is the heavy favorite to land the Texans head coaching job, and I have a lot of mixed feelings about this because
this is literally the exact opposite of the problem. It's a problem, but for the exact opposite reason of what we were just talking about.
Yes. So for me, first of all, DeMeco Ryans 110% deserves to have a job out of the cycle, 110%. But this is not the job that I would prefer him to take. And I don't think any head coach that has a lot of promise or potential head coach, this is not a job that I'd want to see them take because at this point,
I disagree.
Well, here's my problem is we look at the history of this team over the past few years. I just don't know if I'm ready to assume that they're actually hiring somebody with the intent of it being for the long haul. I know that it would make sense for it to be now because Ryans is a true strong head coach candidate, and for him to sign there, you assume they're giving him some amount of like leeway and like understand of like, hey, you're not going to be fired in 2 years. Like this isn't happening. But this is still the Texans we're talking about. I just have a hard time trusting them that even if they do intend to make this hire with the long haul in mind, if things are bad next year and they draft their quarterback, whoever it ends up being, and he doesn't play well, the defense doesn't get much better, even though they brought Ryans, like, is it going to be a situation where they're willing to cut bait very quickly, and then that puts Ryans on behind the eight ball again? Like, I'm just a little bit concerned about that, and the fact that I don't know truly what the direction of this team is still. Hiring him would give me obviously some faith in that to some degree because he's a very good hire to have. But again, it's hard for me to believe that someone of his stature as far as a head coaching candidate right now, I just don't know if this is the job I'd be taking if he's got other offers on the table, which we don't know at this point, but still, it's tough. What do you think, Tom?
Denver sounds pretty good.
This is so now that the Carolina job has been filled, this is the job on the market. None of the other jobs are anywhere near as desirable as this Houston Texans job. So I understand we're very focused in on the last 2 years of Houston Texans, but before that, Bill O'Brien had the longest leash ever. Like that man and his chin could do whatever he wanted. He was there for, what was it, 6-8 years. They made a very conscious decision once they realized that Deshaun Watson wanted out, and then secondary, once they realized after that Deshaun Watson was also a rapist, they then went into tread water mode. They were like, we're going to tread water until we get Deshaun Watson off this roster and figure out when we can start our rebuild. They have done that. They disrespected two incredible people and coaches in this process. And I understand that causes some concerns because they outright disrespected both David Coley and Graham Lovie-Smith. But this is a owner who usually is pretty darn loyal to his head coach. Because remember, Bill O'Brien gets into a feud with his GM, he wins. He's the GM now. This is an owner who he usually rides with his head coach. And this hiring cycle, they're interviewing real candidates. They have the second overall pick. They are ready to start their new journey. They're the new face of the franchise, the new experience of the Houston Texans. This is the offseason. They're pushing start. And that means that whoever they're hiring, they're going to give a big contract to. And the fact that it is DeMeco Ryans gives me a lot of confidence. And I think he's going to do awesome there. Going back to the place that he played, the weird lawsuit stuff behind them. I think that this is the most desirable job on the market left. And I think that DeMeco Ryans is a perfect candidate. So I love this. I think this makes a ton of sense. And I think we're finally seeing the Texans get out of tread water mode and actually picking a direction and go.
So I will say, Tony, I hope that you're right about that. And that's why, like, ideally, if you are, and that's what they're doing, then I think that this is a very good opportunity for someone because, again, the expectation is we want somebody to be established for several years to try to build this up now that we're ready to try to do that. But, again, there's going to be a little bit of trepidation for me constantly until I see it actually start to unfold. But again, it would make sense if they're going to be willing to offer Ryans. They're not offering him just because they need to find somebody. Like, this is a guy that legitimately has options. And for them to think that for him to be the favorite there tells me that he at least is getting an offer that makes sense for him, contractually and also from a team building standpoint. But anything you want to add to that one, Zach?
Yeah, while I do hope you are absolutely correct, Tony.
Yeah, me too.
I do.
Yeah.
If it is, hey, we're gonna sign you to a 1-year deal and we'll see how it goes. This is literally, I think, the only time I'm ever going to say this. Hey, Houston, why don't you get a white guy to come and ruin his career for a year? for like once in this
they wanted McCown, if you remember.
Well, yeah, but that seemed pretty. But that seemed like they were like super set on doing the hard reset, and then they were basically told, "Hey, this man has no experience. He just retired. Like, what are you guys doing?"
Yeah,
and
you want to be in the news constantly for being.
It was with all of the Flores stuff going on. It was like, okay, we can't really because it acting like last year was the first time that like this racial issue has come up. Think back to when Cliff Kingsbury was hired and Steve Wilkes got the axe for no reason that year.
Yeah, his first year.
Rosen
got him fired, man.
Unfortunately, it's a continuous pattern. And so like I said, I absolutely hope that they're ready to like actually take the game of football seriously and not just field 22 players on the field and see what happens. But I don't know. I'm just it like Shayne said, it's just so scary because like I don't want him.
Do you feel better about a coach getting hired into Indianapolis with Jim Irsay over there, or Arizona and all of their mess? Like,
I feel better about Arizona because they'll actually get a chance to like be with a GM hire that might make more sense. I mean, at least
Yeah,
there
but
you're
a
starting
year
over.
behind on their rebuild, right? So like,
Yeah, but anybody
Texans are
coming
closer
in,
to a competitive window.
and I think we also one thing we do need to consider is the NFL, at least from like front office wise, I don't know how this really worked. They kind of admonished the owners this year with some of the firings that happened with how much dead money was on the books. So I'm very interested to see. Yeah, no, because there's too much, but because coaching contracts do not work nearly the same as.
They're fully guaranteed.
No, you get that money. That's why Cliff's and,
well, you get that money, but does it count against cap space?
Nope.
No, there's no cap for coaching hires. It's just
exactly. So that's
pockets.
why David Tepper could turn around and be like, "Oh yeah, Matt Rule, look at this. Check this out. Sign this. This is awesome." Because and I think we're going to see a very interesting hiring cycle with what those contracts turn out to be this year. Because I think some of these teams that are hiring these guys are going to be like, okay, we can't keep doing the same thing because we're the repeat offenders. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't know. In Houston, I just there's nothing from Houston ownership that I'm just like, that's fantastic because of all the trades. I mean, we talk about a long leash, but that long leash was not a great long leash for Bill O'Brien because he greatly damaged that franchise beyond repair that it needed this. I mean, the Laramie Tunsil trade and the DeAndre Hopkins trade and all of the a lot of it did not make a lot of sense.
No, and I think that's something to point out too. Like with Cal McNair taking over the past few years since Bob McNair passed away, like I don't know what his true outlook is for this team. I don't know what he wants necessarily. I think it's a little too early to know for sure because the last couple of years, like we talked about, is a complete just like wash. They're just basically like, we're just going to tread water until something happens, right? And I'm hoping that this is the year something does happen. And if that's the case, then I think Ryan's would make a lot of sense. And then also it makes sense for him to take that job. I think that the scenario that if you're a Texans fan you're wanting is, let's assume Ryan's is the head coach. They take a quarterback at 2 or however, whatever it is, they take a quarterback high. I think that if Ryan's is going to bring in somebody, probably I'm assuming with the Shanahan offensive system is my guess is what he'll probably bring in. He's seen how successful that is, and he's going to have people that know that system that he can hire off and bring in an offensive coordinator. I don't know who my quarterback one is at this point. I have not watched the guys enough to actually make this decision, but I think ideally a guy like Stroud who in a system, if you give him a system that all he has to do is just make the read and make the throw in a Shanahan style scheme, he would make a lot of sense. Young is somebody obviously a lot of people like as QB1. I just haven't watched enough of him, and his size is a little bit of a concern for me, but this isn't really a scouting thing, so we're not going to worry about that too much. But I think if you get a quarterback that can run a Shanahan style scheme, you bring the scheme in, this team could improve very quickly. I don't think they're going to be able to compete necessarily for a couple of years regardless, just because they have a lot of ground to make up offensively on the roster.
Well, luckily there's only one team in their division
that's any good right now. Yeah, poor Titans, poor Colts. But it's going to be fun to see how that plays out. But assuming he gets the job, I think there's definitely a path there where if they do things right, they could.
It just feels like the Texans were an expansion team that was added 3 years ago, and the
last couple of years,
their expansion draft roster is finally taking shape, and they're like, maybe we pull the trigger.
They were literally just treading water. It was very intentional.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean because there wasn't really much as a Miami fan and watching the possibility of Watson coming there wasn't really much they could do because in the end, the Browns wanted him, but it took a while. It took a while for somebody to be like, all right,
we'll do this. Yeah.
Let's do this because I don't believe the whole first year that he sat out that the allegations and stuff were even a thing. I think that was just he didn't. Were they? I thought the first year that he sat out of playing that it was just he didn't want to play for the team because they sucked.
No, he had to because basically it was essentially like being on the exempt list almost, but they didn't actually do it.
Well, so the Texans basically put them. So the NFL refused to put him on the exempt list until things were
actually
solidified.
Yeah.
So the Texans either had to play him, which he was unwilling to play, or just let his cap hit be there, and he was just an inactive player on the roster.
You're literally telling me the Texans just sat there for 2 years and let's just unfold.
Pretty much.
We're just all right, Here you go.
They knew there was nothing they could do. So they were just like, the second that we know we can trade him, we press reset and then we figure it out.
It was a tough situation for them, but that's where they're at right now. So, but we'll see what happens with them. Only one other thing I do want to mention. It's funny you guys mentioned Bill O'Brien because we were talking about the Texans. Back in the NFL's Patriots offensive coordinator, which I don't know what to do with the Patriots anymore at this point. Like, Mac Jones was weird this year, both like on the field and just like was just being a weirdo. There's the whole weird thing where like Bailey Zappi was sort of the starter for a bit for like some reason, even though like I get it, I guess, because Jones wasn't playing well. This whole Patriots situation is weird. Like Bill Belichick, obviously greatest coach statistically all time in terms of Super Bowls, everything else. Like that's great. Don't know if it's really in the cards for him to be successful anymore at this point. I think he probably is best just kind of piecing out within the next year or two, honestly. Don't know if that's going to happen, but we'll see. The hiring, it's a Patriots hire. Like, what else do I have to say about that? Like, it's Bill O'Brien. What are you going to do?
Yeah, Belichick is not at a point in his career where he's inviting new perspective.
No,
right? He's going to go with guys who just are willing to do what he wants to do, and we're going to see that until he ultimately decides to hang him up. I think if we're looking at it through that lens, then it's a good hire because other than Josh McDaniels, who's better in that Belichick tree at coaching offense, I think the offense he coaches will probably be no matter what, an improvement over the Matt Patricia, whatever ran out last year. So I think it is a very not needle moving move. Like they're not like gearing up to try to be the best. They're trying to like win on margins and do what they always do. And I just don't think the NFL works that way anymore.
No, not at all. Anything you want to add, Zach? Or?
Oh yeah, no. Speaking from somebody with experience, it's always a good idea to decrease the amount of offensive coordinators you have on your team.
That's fair.
As Miami decided to test that out first.
Worked pretty well.
Thankfully, we didn't choose defensive guys to be the offensive coordinators.
I don't know. They were pretty good at stopping an offense.
Is Joe Judge? I don't know which way he leans.
He was a special teams coach.
Special teams.
So.
Okay, great, fun. Hey, gunners on the field at all.
That
times.
Offense was special.
As someone's always running a streak. But like literally, and like you guys said, at least it's good that they have somebody to come in and like take over that knows how to coach an offense. Because that's a smart thing to do. However, I think Bill Belichick's retirement status is much bigger mystery than Tom Brady's is. Because I really don't see him stopping anytime soon. Because what reason does he have to? He is making out like a bandit. He is practically a minority owner of the Patriots.
I just think he doesn't like losing, and he's starting to understand that winning isn't much on the horizon. Or at least winning in the amount he wants to win. So I think that's gonna be the thing that does it for him.
And honestly, I don't even see that making him leave the Patriots. I just see that forcing him into the front office and then him just staying there until he dies.
Funny thing about that is the worst part of Bill Belichick is the front office aspect. Like by a wide margin.
He will get a role somewhere.
It will be Gerard Mayo as the head coach and Bill Belichick as the consultant. And that's what it'll be for another
Stevie
10 years.
Belichick is the defensive coordinator or whatever it is. Yeah. The Patriots are weird, man, at this point. I don't know how to feel about them, but that's beside the point.
Did we want to talk about the Rams move?
LaFleur at offensive coordinator?
Yeah.
That was kind of expected. I think he's a guy that makes sense.
It's a little interesting. I think
it matters.
It does.
Because I think there were a lot of questions about, like, do the Rams just strip it down and blow it up right now? Like, is Sean McVay coming back? Liam Cohen left to go back to Kentucky,
which is
same job at Kentucky. And so there are a lot of questions, but I think the fact that Sean McVay stayed and hired a guy who he knows can run his scheme gives me confidence that they're going to gear up and try to compete again.
They're going to
instead of tearing it down.
That whole Sean McVay situation was a bit overblown. I mean, if people actually looked into what he went through the past year and a half, 2 years, you would realize that the man needed to step away for like a couple weeks and be like, I just need some time to get my thoughts together and make sure that this is really what I want to do. Because one, the NFL is a massive time investment for everybody in it. I mean, it's a job. It's what they do for a living. but a bit more because there's the attached value of actually winning on top of that and being successful. But they also all have their personal lives as well, and like that can get in the way. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something to keep in mind, and hopefully, we'll have some more head coaching jobs filled in the next time we meet. But that's what we got for right now. So we definitely want to jump into the games first as well, or before we get going here. Kansas City at Cincinnati, or excuse me, Cincinnati at Kansas City. This one I would
Burrowhead.
love. Yeah, bro, jeez, that was so funny. So I struggle with this one a little bit, and I'm gonna let you guys go first here, but there's a lot of reasons for me to believe that the pick I'm making makes sense, but I always have trouble picking against the team I'm going to ultimately pick against because of who they are. But everything is just lining up for that to be the case when you look at the past 2 years and the situation of this game. But I do want to throw it to Tony first. What do you have for this one?
Yeah, so this is such an interesting, cool game. The AFC bracket got it right, I think, every step of the way. Like the right team won in each game to get the two best in the AFC Championship game. I think we saw Buffalo stumble enough down the stretch where Cincinnati is clearly in a much better spot. Roster's in a better spot. Coaching is just an insane advantage. So we have the right two teams here. And it's just going to be really, really fun to see round 4 of this series has just been incredible because it shows the best side of football, and that the team that largely outplayed the other for the majority of the game has not won the past 3 games of this matchup. The Kansas City Chiefs have by far been the better team for 80% of all 3 games they have played. And then the Bengals just get it done. And they are just a team that gets it done. This, especially in the playoffs, they are a team that finds a way, whether it is a perfect performance like we saw last week, whether it is a terrible performance that they just scrape a win out of, they just get it done. So preface with all of that, the main question here is who wins the trenches. We saw it matter last week. We saw the Buffalo get blown off the ball on both sides of the field. We saw Cincinnati's D-line, which we know their defense is incredible. Their D-line was rushing 3 and getting pressure. They're blitzing Mike Hilton. He's screaming in. They were winning the trenches hard. And then on the other side of the ball, they had 3 backups in, and they dominated. It felt like they were getting like 15 yards per carry. Burrow was never in any trouble. He's getting the ball out quick on the few times that we do have pressure. So their trenches were incredible last week, and they won dominantly because of it. I don't think their trenches are going to dominate again this week. It's a question of like, how much do they? And so Cincinnati's defense, they're going to be able to get pressure with 3 probably. And with Mahomes hobbled, that means instead of running around like he did last year and playing right into Cincinnati's hand, he's just going to hit the hot check down. He's going to be like, hey, Jerick McKinnon, you go get me 8 yards, please, because I need you right now. And I think it's kind of an advantage to Kansas City, as crazy as that is, that Mahomes is not 100%, because he's going to have to make smarter decisions instead of holding on and trying for that deep ball. And that's what's plagued him against Cincinnati. So like that part, I think we're going to see a lot of targets to the short guys. Like, so Jerick McKinnon, big time. Juju Smith-Schuster, big time. Travis Kelce, big time. Just hit everybody short. And Cincinnati, really good tackling defense, really sound tackling defense. But all it takes is one. All it takes is one play, one broken tackle, and then they're gone. And then conversely, their run game is going to matter a lot. I think DJ Reader is a superstar, should have been first team All-Pro. If he can stuff the run, then the Kansas City's screwed. But I think that Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith and I think that they're just, and Joe Thuney, they're good enough in the interior to get some push. And if Isaiah Pacheco, I think they're going to rely on him a lot too. He runs hard. So I think Kansas City's going to be able to move the ball, despite Lou Anarumo cooking up some great stuff. He's going to get his, but Kansas City's going to be able to move the ball. Look at the other side of the ball. Kansas City's defense, 2nd January playoffs hit, Steve Spagnuolo becomes master game planner. He becomes, so Lou Anarumo, best matchup defensive coach in the league in the playoffs for sure. Steve Spagnuolo, number 2. He is going to cook up exactly what they need to get into Burrow's head. Getting into Burrow's head is step 1. Finishing is step 2. They're going to line up in something, throw Burrow into his check. Burrow's going to like something. He's going to check into it. Kansas City has to know what is coming and defend that and defend it well. It is a very complex problem to solve. We saw Buffalo try to do it last week, except they showed a look, forced Burrow to check, and then allowed him to run that play without pushing against it at all. We're gonna see something different from Spagnuolo. He's gonna make life harder. We're not gonna see the Bengals offense move as easily. They're going to move. They're definitely gonna move the ball. They're gonna have to man up at some point, and Jalen Watson isn't covering Jamar Chase. I'm sorry, but I think they're going to at least make it harder. So both of these offenses can move the ball. I think both of these trenches are pretty good. They're each going to get there. And then it's just a matter of they've played this game 3 times, and Kansas City has been better 3 times and has lost 3 times. I don't think that 2 teams at the top of the league can play 4 times and have one of those teams win all 4. It doesn't make sense, especially how well Kansas City has played this team. So despite the ankle and all of that, I'm going with the Chiefs' narrow victory. I think it's going to be relatively high scoring, but I've got 30-27, and I just think it's going to be an awesome game. But the Chiefs got to get one at some point.
Fair enough. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same path. Not necessarily that the injury will settle Mahomes, because I think he's from everything that everybody's saying, it looks like he's about like 80-90%. So I do think he's going to try to like spring out and do some crazy stuff. But like you said, it's going to force him not to be 100% himself. And after watching that drive with Chad Henne when he went out and just watching them effortlessly drive down the field and get a touchdown, while Patrick Mahomes is by far the most talented and like best quarterback in the league, their offensive game plan is also built to do it without him, and they're still pretty good without him. So like this is a team. This is like one of the best teams in the league and have been to 5 consecutive conference championships for a reason. All 3 of the games between the Bengals and the Chiefs have had a 3-point spread in the victory. The last 2 games both ended on last-second field goals at 27-24. The overtime, the playoff one in overtime, and then the other one at the end of this past season. I'm excited for Kansas City this year because their defense has been playing well all year, and despite some of the years in the past, like they've actually like shown like consistency throughout the season. And while the Bengals have been fantastic, I really think that the trash talking this week is going to be a massive boon in the Chiefs' favor, because I don't think you get away with calling Arrowhead Stadium Burrowhead lightly. That's locker room material, and Cincinnati's kind of been doing this all playoffs with all the teams. And I think the Chiefs are the right ones to be like, no, it's time for you to get your medicine. So I have it a little wider. I have them winning 35-27. I see all touchdowns from the Chiefs, and the Bengals try, but there's just going to be a few more stops than the Chiefs can get, or than the Bengals can get. And I think we're in for what a lot of people were expecting for this upcoming Super Bowl with my next pick.
Fair enough. All right, so I am going to go against you guys on this one. So I do think that Mahomes being even slightly hobbled does mean a lot. I understand Tony's thoughts on maybe that makes him kind of settle for more checkdowns, settle for just kind of moving the chains more than maybe trying to make big plays. But this is already an offense now with the way it's built. They're not designed to throw the ball deep down the field constantly. This is not really the same game plan, the same style. And even last year, they didn't really do that either. Like Tyreek Hill did not have a ton of deep like targets like he did with Miami this year. Like that wasn't the offense for them last year.
Most accurate quarterback ever.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So the whole thing with that, like I don't see that being a benefit definitely in any way. I do think it's more of a detriment. I think that if you're the Chiefs, the only way that I see them winning this game is they force a couple turnovers, because there's going to be a couple of drives where just because the pass rush can get to Mahomes easier, there's not going to be as much of a concern about him being able to truly like outrun and find holes to run. There's going to be a couple drives that normally wouldn't get stalled because he'd make a play where maybe he just can't quite make that play, or maybe just can't quite get away from the pass rush. And those drives matter in the context of a game where both of these offenses are probably still going to have the edge over the defenses, at least by a little bit. I do think that if they can't force Burrow to make a couple mistakes himself and give them the ball a couple more times, it's going to come down to, who has the ball last maybe, or who has the chance to go down and win it, but just can't get it done. It's really tough because these teams do really match up well against each other. Like you said, two defensive coordinators who are just masters at game planning and finding matchups and trying to force teams to do what they want them to do on offense opposed to the other way around. It's going to be tough, but I think that at this point, when you factor in the past success they've had against them overall, the ability to find ways to beat this team, and really no one else has been able to beat Kansas City the way that the Bengals have been able to the past 2 years. I think that if Mahomes was fully healthy and I felt comfortable that Burrow and the offense were not at their kind of peak right now, which is where I think they are coming off this past game, I would be picking Kansas City. I think the game script here is that Kansas City is going to have a chance to go and tie it down 24-31 at some point, and Mahomes is going to try to make a play that normally he can make, and it just isn't going to be possible because of his ankle. That's what I think is going to end up happening. I have Cincinnati 31-24 taking the game. So last game we had before the Super Bowl, Philadelphia versus San Francisco. San Francisco coming into Philly. This one, to me, is a lot more interesting, mostly because, one, we've seen KC and Cincinnati play multiple times the past 2 years. We kind of know what we're getting with that to a certain degree, even though the Mahomes injury kind of clouds that a little bit. This is a situation where you have one team who is just – but they were the best team in the NFL in the regular season for a reason, and San Francisco, who's the hottest team coming into the playoffs, coming off, I think it was 10 straight regular season wins and now 12 straight wins total, I think we're at now with them. With a lot of that being Brock Purdy in there. Again, very interesting. It's really interesting to see how these teams are going to match up because you have two unbelievable defenses, both from a personnel standpoint and from a coaching standpoint, and you have very different offensive identities here. There's very different reasons why these two offenses are so good. I'm curious what you guys are going to go with on this one, just because I know I struggle with it a little bit to a certain degree. But ultimately, I think the team that I just think is better won out. But what do you have for this one, Zach?
I have not struggled with this pick whatsoever. I have said that this was going to be the NFC matchup from the beginning of the playoffs, and unfortunately, so we just talked about two fantastic defensive coordinators who are really good at making game plans and stuff. But let's talk about results. These were the two best defenses in the league this year, and I'm going to give the favor to the one that's going to give their opposing quarterback the worst time, because the Eagles have one of the best secondaries in the league. Brock Purdy has been skating on thin ice for the entire time. They have had 2 games away the entire stretch of games they've won, at Las Vegas and at Seattle, 2 bottom tier defenses in the league this year. I'm sorry, they're not winning this game. The offenses, while they have the weapons and stuff, the moment that Brock Purdy puts one of those passes that he just throws up with a prayer's hope, that is getting intercepted this time. The Eagles will force turnovers this game. They will be able to. They sacked the quarterback 70 times this year. They will be able to get pressure on Brock Purdy and force him to make the mistakes that the 7th round rookie, last pick in the draft, is expected to make. It has been an incredible story. He's probably a great backup, but even with this whole stuff about talking about Trey Lance starting over Brock Purdy, all this, this has gone a little bit too far. And like I said, while San Francisco has the weapons and the stuff around Brock Purdy to succeed, the Eagles have the quarterback that I trust more, who's played fantastic this season. And they also have the weapons around him to succeed and get this. I have it a little high scoring, despite it being 2 defenses, but I have Philly winning 30-23. I can't see how San Francisco keeps up with the Philadelphia offense. I just don't. I don't see how it can happen.
All right, what do you think, Tony?
So I didn't really know where you were going, because after you picked the Chiefs, you said where I'm going with this is going to be the matchup a lot of people expected to see. So I was like, oh, is this about to get contentious? No, we have the same thing and almost the same exact score. I have Philadelphia winning 31-23 instead of 30-23. Just they're making an extra point somewhere. But I think a lot of what you said is very true. And I do want to give the 49ers their flowers. They're a darn good team. But last week on this show, I picked Dallas to win because I said this is the first time we're seeing Purdy go up against a real defense, and he's going to poop in his pants, and he's going to have his little rookie moments, and it's going to cost them. He pooped his pants a lot. It didn't cost them.
Unfortunately, Dallas just had an utter explosion.
And Cowboys pooped their pants too a little bit. So
they must have been watching the game in Cincinnati or something, eating some chili. But
they actually called the Indianapolis special. I could not believe my eyes watching.
Zeke didn't deserve that, by the way, to get just dump trucked.
So
well, what did but time out. What did they expect was going to happen?
Yeah, dude, that's the thing. I'm still trying to figure out what the play design was there.
Well, I understand. I heard what the play design was. What this was supposed to happen was Turpin was supposed to get the ball and then lateral it to Zeke. The issue is when
Zeke
you're
got dump trucked. Yeah.
When you're the one snapping the ball, you're going to get pressed off rip and you're not going to be able to recover to take a lateral. Why do you have him snapping the ball? What? Come on now.
Poor Dallas, They always
it was very silly. But
anyways.
So we saw the 49ers narrowly survive against the Cowboys, and the Eagles, their defense, it's just the Dallas defense, but better. They do the same stuff. They're just better. And so you poop your pants against Dallas and you survive. You survive narrowly. You do the same thing against this Eagles team and they lay it on you. I think Shanahan's going to mitigate a lot of that. I do think that their offense is going to have some success, right? Like Shanahan is going to do everything he can to get that third linebacker on the field and then just put a target on his back and just attack the middle of the field. He's going to avoid the boundaries. I don't know if we're going to see a single boundary pass. Like it is all middle of the field all the time. The Eagles run D. If you get them into a light box, you finally get them into that light box. They are a bottom 6 run defense when they have 6 in the box. You get them into those situations, you run it down their throat, you're going to have success moving the ball. So it's going to be all running and attacking the middle of the field and hoping to God that Purdy doesn't kill you. But it's going to be like a lot of like matriculating down the field, not a lot of like chunk plays,
matriculating.
Then you look at the other side of the field, and so you've got Philly's offense and darn good offense, and what they want to do is what the 49ers are designed to. They're a funnel for what Philly loves. They are a funnel. Like you run, you deep shot. Where is the 49ers defense susceptible? The one spot they're susceptible, deep on the boundaries, because Charvarius Ward and Deommodore Lenoir, as good as they have been, they can get beat over the top. We've seen DK Metcalf toast them. We've seen them get toasted fairly frequently. I think they've given up the most 50+ yard plays in the league, which is like a funny stat for the best defense in the league to have. But so the Eagles, they are happy to avoid the middle of the field. You take away to the middle of the field of them, and they're saying, hell yes, now we're in what we want to do. We want to run it off the edges. We want to run it inside behind Kelsey's ass. We want to run. And then the second you man up, we have 2 of the best deep receivers in the league. And we don't care how good your cornerbacks are, we will win. We have the best deep pass thrower in the league. We will win. And so we're just going to see them running, mostly successfully. They'll probably average like 4.5 yards per clip because this 49ers defense can kind of get beat in the run game. And then we're just going to see a bomb. We're just going to see 60-yard bombs to A.J. Brown, to Devonta Smith. We're going to see them kill them and dice them up over the top. Jalen Hurts is going to have an incredible passing game. I have them winning 31-23, like I said. I just think that they're 2 really, really good teams, and the Eagles have 2 clear advantages. What I was just saying, where they can throw it over the top of you, and that's where the 49ers are weak. And then also, Nick Sirianni makes good decisions when it comes to late game scenarios. Kyle Shanahan does not. We saw Brock Purdy almost cost his team last week. Kyle Shanahan also almost cost his team last week because he doesn't know how to manage late game scenarios in close games. And Sirianni will coach circles around him in those scenarios. So yeah, I've got the Eagles winning and setting up a really, really good Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl.
All right, so I do have Philadelphia winning as well, so I'm going to keep that the same with you guys. 27-24, that was my score prediction. I think that what the Niners are going to do is essentially try to get to 50 rushing attempts. Like, that's what I think they're going to try to do. That's going to be the game plan. Keep the ball away from Hurts as much as you can. Try to make sure that Purdy is as comfortable as he can get by having some open looks based off that running game success. I think, though, it's just not going to be enough, kind of like what you said. I think that the Eagles are just a better team. They have a way better quarterback, obviously. They have overall, I think that I like their offensive style of play against the 49ers defense better than I like the 49ers offense against the Eagles defense. That definitely matters a lot. As good as the Shayne scheme is, this Eagles defense is just tough. There's just really not a whole lot of easy ways to exploit them other than getting the run game really hardcore going. And I think that's why they're going to have enough success to make this a close game. But again, Philly just wins out. I think that they have a better chance of creating big plays. I think that Purdy is eventually going to kind of crap his pants like you guys said he already did last week. It just didn't matter because Dallas's offense decided not to show up. It's too much, I think. This is the point where I know we've kept saying it, like, is Purdy going to fail? Is he going to fail? It's not even so much that at this point. It's just Philly's just better. Like, they should win this game regardless, really. It's not about whether Purdy plays good or bad. They're just the better football team. So I'll be surprised if they don't come away with the win. And for me, it's going to be Philly and Cincy in the Super Bowl. Zach, you appear to have something to say. What's going
on? Breaking news.
Okay.
Stetson Bennett was arrested this morning.
Oh, I did see that.
For public intoxication and running from questioning. I just saw the video and I was just like, you idiot.
Is this the Baker special? Do you remember that? Where he was
I don't
know. I think this is just Stetson Bennett's midlife crisis, right? That man's pretty old.
Walking down the street, right? I think they might have been approached, and then he started walking away, and then they were like, "Hey, you got to come back here," and then he just started running. And man, okay,
he couldn't get away. You see him run away from TCU.
Yeah. The only other thing I was gonna say about the Eagles game though, this is also the link. We talk about Arrowhead Stadium. Lincoln Financial Field is a beast when they've got something to play for. It's gonna be a scene. It's gonna be a scene, and I cannot wait to see what happens in Philly after the game.
Oh well, it's gonna be terrible no matter what. We all know that.
They're greasing up the telephone poles,
right?
Oh yeah. I had a customer come in. They're like, "Oh yeah, they're doing it because of the 49ers fans." I was like, "Do you not remember when you guys won the Super Bowl? They're doing it because of you."
Do you not remember the guy who face planted going chasing the train? Do you remember?
I will give props though. So they have a rule there that you can only tailgate for up to 4 hours before the event. They have been having other events that start at like 1 and all this stuff. So they've been double buying the tickets, not to go to the events, but so that way they can tailgate for 8 straight hours and don't have to leave.
They're buying tickets to like amateur lacrosse leagues or something so that they can tailgate earlier. It's beautiful.
It's
Philly,
amazing.
of the 4 teams left, Philly would have the most fun Super Bowl parade and party, and so that's what I want.
Of Eagles Bills Super Bowl, that fan Super Bowl.
I was imagining it a lot.
The amount of
I know, but like just
sacrifice to the gods.
Probably the two most. I told the guy that had said something about it last night. I was like, see, the problem is Eagles fans are assholes to everyone. Yes. Bills fans just are insane with themselves.
Yeah, they inanimate objects a lot.
They just go ham on each other.
Yeah, but that's gonna do it for us. You know, we'll definitely preview the Super Bowl match, or probably next week, so that way we can all enjoy Super Bowl, not have to worry about doing a show that week. But that'll do it for us this week. Definitely hope that I'm right. Obviously, I'm the only one who really had any difference. Yeah, okay.
Hey, flag football, baby.
Yeah, well, it's probably better than anything else I've been trying to do. So
a fantastic point of showing how brutal this game is, of how they've had to change that so much.
Ironic, isn't it? All right, that'll do it for us with the ATB NFL Live show. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next week.